about dangerous sexual choices, and there should be some interesting information that really will touch many people's lives because, as you know, we all make choices every day. And sometimes those choices can get us into some pretty scary situations. Not to mention, they can affect other people around us. They can affect our spouse. They can affect if you're in a partner type relationship. So our choices really do have an impact on not only ourselves, but others around us and also the world. So we are, we're not alone. We really affect one another. And it's always important to keep that in mind because if you are always thinking about yourself and your problems and how you go about living your life in this world, and it's really just about yourself, at some point you're going to find that life can be pretty lonely. So I'm going to talk about some of the situations I have seen people get themselves into, how to get out of them, and hopefully to help you so that you don't get yourself into a dangerous situation. But I'm sure many of you, as you get older, you can probably think back when you have put yourself in a position where either something bad may have happened or you just luckily escaped danger. So, first of all, I want to say hello, and of course, I always like to know who my audience is, where you're coming from, where you live, and if you have any questions, I will go ahead and answer those at the end of this presentation. Alrighty then, so I am going to get started with a question. Now, you would be surprised how often I get asked this question, and I'm not giving a specific question. I've basically pulled a bunch together just to show you that this is something that people ask me quite often. And then I'm going to go over why it can be a problem. And so let me just get started with that. Okay. So once again, if you want to ask me a question, you can visit my website, thehappyspouse.com, and put it in the contact box, or you can go through my email, but make sure that it's a question for the show. If there is a private question you need answered, I do charge a small charge for that, but it is private and it will not be mentioned on the show. Okay, here we go. My wife and I have been indulging in my sexual fantasy of me being in a cuckold relationship, and even though she does not want to do it in real life, she seems to enjoy the fantasy in bed. How do I convince her to take the next step and make my fantasy a reality? So I'm basically going to break down this question for you in a minute. But I'm going to read a couple other items here. So let's go back to this idea of choices. So we all have choices, and those choices can bring about success, happiness, fulfillment, as well as unhappiness, chaos, and misery. Actions, so what we do, as well as words, have great meaning to them. This is something that is so important that for some reason we are not taught. So the words that come out of our mouth, just think about this for a minute. Let's say I told you that you just won $20,000, okay? Just those words coming out of my mouth. What does that do? Does that raise your adrenaline? Does that make you excited? So just the fact that I said those words actually affects how you feel. So your brain releases hormones, your brain releases adrenaline. And so if you think about when you're talking to another individual and you say something to them, how powerful your words are, as well as when you hear something, how powerful those words are. So always be mindful of when you're saying something, but always be mindful of what you're hearing. And instead of reacting to what you may hear, sometimes we need to take a deep breath and think about it. How is that making us feel? This also goes back to when you're watching a video, like let's say you're watching pornography and you see something. Okay, that's an action or somebody saying something. That has a direct effect on the way that you feel. And sometimes when you see something over and over again, you think that it's normal. It somewhat desensitizes you. So by you watching it, you thinking about it, you fantasizing about it, all of a sudden it's becoming more normal to you. You're normalizing it. You're putting your energy into it. You're thinking about it. And then the next step is, if you're married or you're in a relationship, you automatically want to share that with your spouse. Now, they haven't been watching those videos. They may not even know what it is. They may find it completely crazy. It may scare them. It's not normalized to them whatsoever. But you, again, have been thinking about it, engaging in it, and fantasizing about it, and spending probably, I don't even know, hours and hours a week thinking about it. So the next step for you would be, oh, they feel the same way, or I'm going to tell them and it's not going to be a big deal. But that's not true. And many times when men bring up this particular situation of cuckold to their wives, the truth is they have had this fantasy for years and years. They've been thinking about it for years and years. They've been wanting to indulge in it for years and years without really understanding the consequences, or even the consequences of having an expectation that their spouse or their girlfriend would want to be involved in that. So let's say, on the other hand, that your wife, because women don't have the same type of fetishes as men. Yes, some women do, but for them, sex is not as intense as it is for men, and sexual fantasies are not as intense. And I've even had men say to me, I know my wife, I know she has a hidden fantasy, because for him, he has these sexual fantasies all the time. It's just so important. It's so big that there's no way that she couldn't have a sexual fantasy too. But men and women are very different. And a lot of women don't have sexual fantasies. And also, if you ask a woman a question, oh, do you have a sexual fantasy? And she says no, a lot of men think that the woman is lying, when in fact she really may not. I'm going to go back over this question, and I'm going to break it down, because in this particular question, there is a lot of danger that I see for this person. Okay. Number one, he wants his wife to, he wants her to indulge in his sexual fantasy. Now, remember, this is his sexual fantasy. It's not hers. And so the fact that she's participating in it, most likely women do that because they want to please their spouse or they want to please their boyfriend. And so women, more so than men, they want to look like they're trying to please their husbands or make the sexual situation better. So they may go along with certain things. And then sometimes men will say, oh, I see that she got excited by what I was talking about. And so it's not necessarily that she got excited by that, but she's just enjoying the exchange and the relationship and the intimacy and all that, and trying to have fun with her husband. And then he'll take it to the next step, because again, it's his fantasy. Remember, he's used to it. He's normalized it. And he'll take that next step, where not only does he want to continue for her to fantasize and play out just between the two of them in bed, but now he wants her to engage in an actual cuckold relationship where she is now sleeping with another man, that he in his mind says, you choose who you want to be with, or some men say, I'll choose who you want to be with. And then they want to control the situation so that they feel like they're bringing their wife all of this sexual pleasure that they can't bring to them. And the women on the other end of the spectrum often say, why would my husband want me to sleep with another man? Does he not love me? This is something typical that women will say, because women are emotionally driven by sex. Now, men can be emotionally driven by sex, especially as they get older and they have established relationships. The emotional part of it is very important. And so for women, that is the key ingredient, is that emotional connection. Now, if it looks like she's not having an emotional connection, and then you're saying, oh, she can just go out and be with someone without that connection, she's really detached from herself. So she is no longer present when she's actually having sex. She has distanced herself in her mind. She's no longer in her body and her mind. And that can be a problem because now she's not engaging in intimate sex. And if she happens to have that with another person, then she is going to attach to that other person. So cuckold relationships can be very dangerous. The next thing is, in this question, he wants to know, how do I convince my wife to take the next step? That right there is him thinking about himself and only himself. Because now he's trying to convince his wife to get into a situation where, in this question, she clearly said she did not want to take the next step. So now he's not listening to what she really wants. He's just assuming, oh, well, it looks like she enjoyed it, so now I'm gonna push her into that next situation. And I cannot tell you how many questions I get on this. So it's a high percentage of people that are involved in this fantasy that really push it onto their spouse, and they want to go to the next level. Sorry, give me a second. Take a sip of water. So in all the time that I have been helping people in my practice with all types of different relationship issues, I've had several people that have talked about getting into a cuckold situation, couples that have already tried it before they have come to me for counseling, and couples that want advice on experimenting. Now, I've had many years where I've worked with couples now, so the results I've seen over a long period of time, even those couples that have engaged with it over a long period of time, I have not seen much success. And the reality of the situation is either sometimes the woman just ends up being so resentful because she doesn't realize it when she's going through it, but she builds up a resentment, and over time she ends up leaving her husband. That's one scenario. I've had many scenarios where the woman gets attached to the quote unquote bull or the other man, and she ends up leaving her husband for that person. Or she starts to disconnect from her husband emotionally because it's not something that was her fantasy. It was something that she feels like she was pushed into doing. And maybe at the time there was some excitement to it, or maybe pre-children, because that happens too. She was being experimental, but now that she's gotten a little bit older, she finds that she resents that. And so that's one aspect of getting yourself in a dangerous sexual situation. And that would be trying to push your sexual fantasy onto another person. Okay, so let me go on with some other examples of this. So we've talked about words and the meanings in words. Now we have to talk about actions. And again, these are all choices. We have free will. So even if something pops in your mind that maybe is, you feel like, oh, this came into my mind, I think about over and over again. So I just feel helpless to it and I have to try this. Well, that's not true. You see, that's not true at all. It may have popped into your mind, but at that point, you can decide to do it or not to do it. And many times when something pops into your mind and you even feel an intensity to do it, that's when you have to take a deep breath and you have to think about, what are the consequences? Like, if I take the next step and I do this, what are the consequences and how is it going to affect my life? And at that point, when you make the decision that you're going to be responsible for your choices, your life will change for the better. Because once you take responsibility for things, once you empower yourself and you realize that you can create your own destiny, that by the choices you make, you can create your own reality, people start to have a better life. They start to understand how the world works. And again, unfortunately, we're not taught this when we're little. The school system doesn't teach it. Our parents really don't talk about it. But it's a really, really important lesson that people need to learn in life. And when you make that choice to do something, you also have to take responsibility for it. We all make mistakes. I like to say that, sometimes people make a mistake because we're human. We make mistakes, right? But a mistake doesn't happen twice. So a mistake is fine, but it doesn't happen twice. So then you're consciously doing the same thing over again, knowing that it was a bad choice to begin with. And that would be what I'm talking about with consequences. Okay. So let's go on to the next point here. And also, if anytime anyone wants to chime in and say where they're from, I'm really interested, again, what state you're from, what country you're from, and also you can, state a question if you have one. Okay. So next I have here is people may not realize that they get themselves into dangerous situations, maybe by not thinking through the consequences and the impulse. So that's one thing that we were talking about. The other aspect of this is if you have something that pops into your mind and it's something that you're giving energy to. Let's say that you have a fetish and you are doing things to give it energy, meaning you're indulging in it with fantasy, you're indulging in it through porn, maybe you're indulging in it with another person. And it's something that is creating chaos in your life. Maybe it's hurting your relationship. It's something that is making you not be successful in your life. So, but your excuse is, it keeps popping into my mind. It feels like I have to do it. It feels like I have to think about it. Well, the reason that it keeps popping into your mind and it's so intense is because you keep acting on it. You keep putting energy into it. If you put energy into anything in your life, anything, good or bad, you're going to get back that energy twofold or threefold. And so the reason it keeps popping in your mind is you keep acting on it. So the less you act on it, the less it's in the forefront of the mind, the less you put energy into it, the less it's going to pop into your mind. And so that's, again, where you have a choice. At that moment that it comes into your mind, you can choose to do something else. And for people who really have a strong impulse, and I know people do, I understand, I've worked with people for a long time, and sometimes when they get a thought in their mind, they feel somewhat helpless to it. But that also is a mindset. So you're not helpless. There's things that you can do. And so being proactive is really important. So let's say you have something that constantly pops in your mind and it feels intense. What you need to do, number one, is take a deep breath so that you're putting oxygen into your mind, because oftentimes an intense thought will bring about an anxious feeling. When you have an anxious feeling, it means that your brain is not getting enough oxygen. So that's where you get the physiological aspect of feeling clouded. Like sometimes we'll say, oh, I get this intense feeling. It just feels, this thought, it feels so intense. So the anxiety, you start having like the anxiety. Some people get shortness of breath. So what's happening is you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain, and that will cause you to have cloudy judgment. And that cloudy judgment can lead to you doing something that is dangerous, that has consequences, that isn't healthy for you. So if you get that feeling, take a deep breath. Take several deep breaths. Once you take several deep breaths, the oxygen will go to your brain. You'll calm down your central nervous system. And then be prepared by making a list for yourself of 10 things that you can do instead of acting out that impulsive thought that you have. So that you have something right there, you can put it on a little piece of paper. I often tell people, write it down on a piece of paper. And there's two reasons for this. Number one, when you write something down on a piece of paper, you're using a different part of your brain. And the actual writing down helps you to think better. The second thing is, if you put it on your phone, when you go to look at your phone, unfortunately, your thing that you're thinking about is probably on your phone. So don't write things down on your phone. Put it on a piece of paper, put it in your pocket, put it in your dashboard. I don't care where you put it. Write it on a piece of paper so that when you have that intense thought, after you do your deep breathing, you can choose one of the 10 things that you can focus on, that you can take action on, and that you can do. Now, this might be difficult at first. I understand, because you're trying to break a pattern. But once you start doing it, over time, it gets easier. It gets easier and easier. And it takes about 3 months to break a pattern. So give yourself that time. And sometimes people mess up, You take a step backwards, you take 2 steps forwards. It's okay as long as you've made a commitment that you're going to do this. That's the other thing, is a commitment. You got to make a commitment every day. So we have now. When you wake up in the morning, you have now. So don't put anything off. Whatever you think of now that you have to do it today. Don't put it off tomorrow, because tomorrow may not come. I mean, we don't know. We don't know what will happen to us tomorrow. So that's one thing, is if you make a commitment today. Do it today. Start out today. Once you put something off to tomorrow, the chances that people go back to it are very slim. Okay, so who do we have here? Shubham, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. Hi, doctor, I'm from India. Wonderful. I hope you're okay. Thank you very much. So I love the fact that I have people from all over the world that tune in, and so it makes it very interesting, because truly what I'm talking about, wherever you're at, you all have choices that you can make. And, it's one of the wonderful things about this is once you start making good choices in your life, the results, they really are amazing. You make good choices, you take responsibility for your actions, and what you get back over time is really amazing. The other thing is we have to get out of doing things just for ourselves. So just to please ourselves, just thinking about ourselves, that will get you to be a very lonely person. But when you start thinking about other people in your life and you have good thoughts for them and you do good things for them, that energy will come back to you. And that's very powerful, especially in a marriage, in a relationship. Sometimes when couples get into an argument, I will often tell them it's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about how you resolve the problem. And so if you both can come together and resolve the problem and put your egos aside, then you're now working as partners. You're taking your selfishness out of it, and you're trying to resolve a problem rather than have it your way. And that also builds character, and that just shows that you have a sense of maturity, and that's a wonderful thing. So there's also something else that's really important. People oftentimes will not trust their gut. So maybe they know they're going to get themselves in a bad situation, but their first instinct, their initial instinct is not to do it, and then they talk themselves out of it, or they question themselves, or maybe they'll ask somebody else for their opinion. The first initial thought that you have, if it's something that you're going to do and you just have this feeling that it's not a good idea, it's really important to start trusting that feeling and understanding that you have, besides your five senses, we also have another sense, which is our instincts. And that gut feeling, that just that something isn't right. And so it's really important to trust yourself and trust those feelings. And many times when people learn to do that, they learn to make better choices. And it's really important that, let's say you're even a parent, if you start to trust your instincts, then you can teach your children how to do that too. And so it's really important as adults that we start to cultivate that, learn how to do that. And it also builds self-confidence. When you start to trust your instincts, then you build your self-confidence. And that's one more thing I want to talk about too, is self-confidence. So if you have self-confidence, then that means that you love yourself, right? And that's not in an egotistical way. It's very healthy to love yourself, because when you love yourself, you're able to love other people. And it's not loving yourself because you have material things. It's loving yourself because you like who you are. And most of the time people get that feeling that you like who you are because you can give yourself to other people freely. It's that you have the self-confidence where you're not constantly beating yourself up. You're not constantly putting yourself down. You're not using that energy in a negative way. And that usually shuts people down. When you don't love yourself, you usually are beating yourself up. And that makes you very self-absorbed because you're constantly in your head, putting yourself down, thinking of negative things. And when you do that, you shut yourself off from the world and you shut yourself off from other people. So learning how to build that self-confidence, that self-love is extremely important. And that goes back to making good choices for yourself, making good decisions, and also giving of yourself to others. So I will go ahead and take your questions. If you have any quick questions, that's the end of this part of the discussion. I hope that you all learned a little something from this, and you can take it into your day and you can feel better about things. And, you know, the other aspect is when you when you realize that you're part of a bigger, bigger place in this world, you're given free will. That free will and making good choices and putting out good energy, it not only will bring you back positivity, but you're putting it out into the universe. You're putting this positive energy out into the universe. Now think about if you're putting negative energy out into the universe, and a bunch of people are putting negative energy out into the universe. That's what you're filling the universe with, is negativity. And negativity doesn't propel you forward. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't make you into a better person. It doesn't make other people around you want to be with you. It's just negative, and it's dark, and it's sad, and it's lonely. So if you can put positive energy out into the world and see things in a positive way, then that energy goes out into the universe, and it also comes back to you threefold. I know because I use this on a daily basis. I wake up in the morning and I am grateful for everything that I have when I wake up. And I have been practicing gratitude for a very, very long time. And when you put yourself in a grateful position, then you see the world in a positive way. Instead of, I don't have this, or I don't, I feel like this, or that's not being grateful. That's looking at things in a negative way. We can all find pieces of gratitude in our lives. All of us can. Every single one of us can wake up in the morning and we can find some type of gratitude. It can be the smallest thing that you can start with. But if you start your day with gratitude and you start your day on a positive note, then your day will be good. One example is, you wake up in the morning and maybe you stub your toe. So then the rest of the day, you have a negative feeling about it. And so everything that comes your way that day is negative. Something else happens that's bad. You feel bad for yourself. So that's how your entire day gets ruined. But let's say you stubbed your toe and you're like, ouch, that hurt. Why did I stub my toe? Okay. Oh, yeah, I left that thing in the middle of my room, or, I wasn't paying attention. And so now you're going to do something productive from it. Oh, I'm going to pick up all the clothing that's on my floor so that I can see where the table is and I won't stub my toe again. Or use that as, maybe this is a reminder for something that I need to do, and turn it into a positive instead of a negative. Just try this. You can try this today. It's powerful information, and it will transform your life over time. So anyway, I hope all of you have a fantastic, positive day. And if you have any comments, you can leave it below the video. Again, you can also visit me on my website, thehappyspouse.com. And as you know, I believe everyone deserves to have a healthy sex life, and so do you. Make it a fantastic day.